Hello and welcome to a new video. Today we're going to take a look at the top 10 teams with a buffed Pokemon for the Open Ultra League for this season here right now. Either buffed Pokemon or new Pokemon. The new Shadow Pokemon are not included here right now. We're going to take a look at them separately eventually as well on my channel. I think I'm going to most likely make another analysis for the Shadow Pokemon that are going to come into the game. But otherwise, we're going to take a look here now today at the meta for the Open Ultra League. Starting with the top meta here right now, we're going to see that most Pokemon that we see here already were at the same place before already. Like, there's not a lot that really changed. The Walrein kind of went a little bit higher here since the Icicle Spear buff. But still, while it doesn't really seem to change that much, the core meta, still you can all play them very, very easily there. There are now a lot new different Pokemon that you can also play here. As you're going to see right now, you're going to have here the Walrein on top. Golisopod, I'm not really sure. I wouldn't really rank it at rank 26. I think it's a little bit lower. I think it's a little bit overrated here, maybe because X-Scissor is a bait or something helped out quite a bit. Clefable looks like such a solid Pokemon. It should also be a very consistent Pokemon because you don't really have to bait with this Pokemon in order to win games, unlike Golisopod. Here we're going to now see as well Obama Snow as well as the Lurantis down there. They don't run the new move Leafage. You can still run it, but it's not really preferred here, it seems like. But still interesting Pokemon to play here. Otherwise, the Alolan Sandslash very high up there, which is also cool to see. A Miltank very high up there, as well as the Nidoqueen as well. Also, the Toxicroak has a lot of potential. Another thing that you see here as well, you see the values on the right side. As close as they are together, the basically closer the meta is. So, like, for example, here Lurantis has a rank for 83.6 or something there, compared to, for example, Cresselia 95.4. The difference there between it is like more than 100 places, but the difference in the ranking is not that high, which kind of means that you have a lot of different Pokemon that all are viable for the Open Ultra League, which is something that is nice to see. It seems pretty balanced. So, let's start with the first team here already before we talk like too much about the meta. Let's take a look at the first team, going to be around Clefable. Now having access to the move Variant, and all those Charm users here potentially on the screen are not really running Charm in my opinion. You can decide to run Charm still on basically any of them if you want to. But I would recommend, if you run the Alolan Ninetales, run Powder Snow. If you run the Snarl Grand Ball here, of course, use Snarl. Here you can use the normal Grand Ball. The Shadow Grand Ball is, in my opinion, a little bit preferred, but like you can do whatever you want to do. I just didn't want to put the Shadow variants in here. As you're going to see here right now, this is going to still give you some holes, but for example, Pidgeot, you're still going to have a pretty okayish time with all Pokemon. Pidgeot just is a very good Pokemon in Sims. It's not really as, it's still very strong, of course, in the Open Ultra League, one of the strongest Pokemon, but it's not as crazy strong. It just wins all the Sims because it's always based with the double debuffing move Feather Dance. You still have answers for the Jellicent, which theoretically beats you the entire time, but like it's still a very, very close matchups. Same goes for Golisopod, same goes for Swampert. You always have like some kind of answers for those Pokemon. It just looks a little bit worse on paper than it actually is. You just need something in the lead that can deal with like Steel type Pokemon. Use Seisob, hopefully mainly into the Shadow variant of the Granule Snarl. Try to bait out a Steel type and then sweep endgame with Clefable. This is a team that I also showcased already for the Great League, and it worked out super, super well. I saw also a lot of people having fun with that one, so definitely recommend it to you. Next team, Golisopod. This was a very difficult one to do. You need something to answer mainly like a lot of the fighting type Pokemon because they have coverage with rock types, which might be a little bit tricky, but also of course those flying type Pokemon like the Pidgeot. So what you're going to have here is the Regirock or the Galarian Stunfisk in the back, as well as the Cresselia or the Registeel here. Those are pretty decent together, especially like what you kind of want to do here is you want to try to get the Swampert out or something with your Seisob, maybe the Registeel there, and then sweep endgame with that, because your lead of Golisopod is the best answer for the Swampert. What you also see here right now is that I'm running Aerial Ace on Golisopod instead of the move X-Scissor, because I feel like X-Scissor doesn't really help you. It's a really, really weak move. Same goes for Aerial Ace. But Aerial Ace has the one thing that it makes so special and better for the Ultra League, in my opinion, is the matchup against Virizion. Virizion gets completely wrecked by Aerial Ace. It is double super effective, and it just helps out a little bit more than the neutral X-Scissor, I feel like. So yeah, that's why I went for that one. You can still use X-Scissor, definitely also totally fine, but yeah, I feel like that maybe the Aerial Ace gives you a little bit more of potential. but only really for that one matchup. Like anything else, you kind of want to have the liquidation. Of course, still Grass no Cresselia are going to be very strong in this meta as well. Here, same goes for the Galarian Stunfisk, but also you can use, of course, one of the other 2 Pokemon there in the back as well. You're going to see here the Alolan Sandslash as a team, which is kind of interesting. We're going to have here a similar team that you can also run like that. In the Great League, we had like already a lone Sandslash, Medicham plus Deoxys defense in the Great League. So here you can kind of do a similar style with the Say-Swap of the Deoxys. Yeah, we didn't go for it because like most people don't have the Deoxys build, of course, so we went for the Giratina, which is a little bit easier to get. But still should work out pretty okay here. Looks pretty decent on paper, to be fair, with Giratina as a Say-Swap. Honestly, looks really good as like with Giratina as a Say-Swap. I actually wouldn't even really recommend you Shadow Sneak on this Pokemon. You can run Shadow Sneak on the Giratina, like it is here right now. That's like the normally preferred moveset. But Ancient Power might help you out against something like a Pidgeot that wants to swap into you, because you have a hard answer for flying type Pokemon in the lead. You have a Say-Swap that kind of can bait them out, and you have a Pokemon in the back that really benefits from not having a flying type Pokemon against you, so that might help you out a little bit more. Taking a look now at the next team, you're going to have Cordilli here with a new move, Rock Slide, for the moveset, which is going to make it a little bit easier to get to those moves there. We're going to have a fully XL variant here. You need, I think, a 100% version of this Pokemon as well. But a very interesting Pokemon here, going to be able to beat both the Swampert as well as the Noctowl, or like, yeah, people run XL Noctowl actually, but also, of course, the Pidgeot, which is a little bit more common. So might be an interesting Pokemon for that regard. Definitely something that you can run, as you're going to see here as well. It's not going to be too crazy here for this team. I would run it as a Say-Swap maybe, but it is also a little bit tricky. Maybe it just depends on what lead you're going to encounter, because it's going to be completely hardwalled by Cobalion, which makes it a little bit tough sometimes to play this Pokemon maybe. But it really depends on this one. It's a little bit tricky for this Pokemon, to be fair, in the Ultra League. But let's take a look at the next one. We're going to have Double Ice Team here. We're going to have here now 2 buff Pokemon in there, which are going to be mainly around Walrein, of course, because Walrein is now a really, really strong Pokemon here. We're going to have the Virizion in the lead, but you can also use the Buzzwole, a Pokemon that's going to be very weak against those flying-type Pokemon, but can withstand the Cobalion mainly. Say-Swap is definitely better to have the Walrein compared to the Lapras. Here, Lapras would be an alternative, but Walrein is just way better than Lapras, especially because Walrein has coverage with the move Earthquake, which is really beneficial here. Otherwise, you can either run the Aurorus there in the back, or of course the also newly buffed variant of the Sandslash there. Actually, here it says Powder Snow Sandslash. I still think that the variant with the Shadow Claw might be a little bit better, but that's what Poke says to you. For me, I think the difference is not really that big, to be fair. So, like, whatever you really want to run, both of them going to be fine. Now, let's take a look at the next game. Next team, we're going to have Lurantis here. Lurantis having the move Leaf Edge now. This is actually a team that I was running before already on my channel, like a season ago or something, but of course not with Leaf Edge, but with the move Fury Cutter, which made actually a lot of sense for this team, and I had a great time playing this team. Very strong team to use here. We're going to have the Warren in the lead. We're going to have the Say-Swap. I had the Trevenant there as a Say-Swap, and then we're going to have the Pokemon in the back there with the Lurantis. Very strong team for me. Definitely worked out pretty well. You can also use the Virizion as a Say-Swap, but then make sure to run the moves Stone Edge with it, because you're gonna get out the flying type Pokemon anyway, and this is kind of important for it. Here we're going to see the moveset as well. We have here the Aurorus in the lead. Warren is also totally fine, but yeah, Aurorus was what I was running there. I think maybe Warren might be even a little bit better right now because of the buff, but really depends. Of course, Warren plus Trevenant Core still very strong. Next opponent, I'm still commentating like battles here right now. Next team here, we're going to have a Drifblim. Drifblim going to have now the move Mystical Fire. Unlike that it's going to be better for it, we're going to talk a little bit about this right now as well, because you're going to see here right now a lot of Pokemon that are actually weak to Ice type moves, but not really to Fire. Of course, for Registeel it's going to be fine, but you're still going to lose against it. But for example, Cobalion, now you're going to win, which is really nice. But Pidgeot, you have not the super effective move anymore. For Giratina Altered, it was kind of nice to debuff them. For Virizion, it was nice to debuff them, even though now Mystical Fire is also still fine against it. But against Swampert, it was pretty important. So there are a lot of Pokemon where you don't really need Mystical Fire. Maybe Ice Wind is still better. But if you want to try it out, here is a team that you can run. Regirock in the back is also, by the way, very underrated. Regirock in the Ultra League, definitely worth it. Next team coming up, Palossand. This was a little bit of a trickier one. You see here as well the Articuno there, but honestly Articuno might be the best Pokemon to deal with, like to pair with a Palossand, because Palossand is just yeah, it's a little bit tricky. It is having Mudshot, Shadow Ball, Earth Power, very decent. It is the hardest answer for both Cobalion as well as the Registeel, which is very nice to see. But other than that, you're going to have some struggles to deal with a lot of Pokemon. I feel like Cobalion as a safe up here does make a lot of sense. But keep in mind, you're going to be a little bit weak against Charizards from your opponents most likely. So that's going to be a little bit tricky for this team. But still, Pelosan, most likely not the best Pokemon, but it is a new Pokemon, so I kind of wanted to include it here right now. As you're going to take a look at the Stunfisk this time around. The Unnovan variant, which now has access to the move Mud Bomb. We recently had a research day for that one. And it definitely seems to be worth it to go ahead and, yeah, power this Pokemon up. I might power my own up, but here we're going to take a look now at the Stunfisk. Here going to be pretty damn decent, going to be able to beat Pidgeot, Cobalion, as well as the Registeel, and going to also have a pretty decent fight, I think, against Giratina and against most Pokemon. It's a very decent lead in general, in my opinion, because you just have a lot of times something like a Cobalion or like a Pidgeot in the lead, so it's kind of nice to have something for that. It's a little bit tricky to build a team around this Pokemon again. Having here the Giratina, Giratina going to get beaten, of course, by our Walrein there, and the Cresselia also going to be pretty decent in the back, but it's a little bit tricky. We're going to have basically here the option to have some hard answer to Steel types in the lead. Walrein is a safe swap, but you're going to be able to have Earthquake still as in coverage move for those Steel types, and then Cresselia in the back that really doesn't want to face them. But I think it's a cool Pokemon to run, so definitely something you can take a look at as you're going to take a look at the final team. That's going to be the most fun one of them all, Grasso for the Ultra League. Honestly, I think it can work out pretty well. We have Probopass here with the move Zap Cannon now, which definitely going to give it a little bit more potential to nuke some stuff around. It's not the best Pokemon, but it's a fun Pokemon. And if you don't have the Probopass, you can still use the Aggron, and basically has a similar approach to it. We're going to have here the Buzzwole, most likely a worse Saysop here compared to our Deoxys defense. But then we have basically something that has grass coverage than the back. Either the Cresselia, which is a little bit safer, or the Virizion, which is of course also pretty damn decent. But I feel like actually, if you run Aggron plus the Saysop of Deoxys defense and the Cresselia in the back, I think that's a really decent team. But yeah, I don't know, we will find out shortly, I guess. It's going to be it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like on the video. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And there are 2 videos on the screen right now. Check them out, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.